It's funny because my actual basement is a fucking dungeon.
Right. It looks very funny how it just looks like not only are you having a uniquely normal house, but like it's like you're in your doorway at 4 in the afternoon. Like
Yeah, like
it's
like it's
natural. Like it's just like okay, okay.
and then the light from the computer bouncing off my face. Yeah, it's a whole lot.
It's yeah, it's like if you pulled up like if you had a fake suit on, but like it if you were yeah, you had fake clothes on, but like had a fake business suit on at midnight. It's like if you, for fake clothes, it's weird. Like
It's
no one
like
would have said anything if
like
you
it's
had like fake shorts and a t-shirt on.
just sitting there.
Mm.
And welcome to RUNE. This is the podcast. We talk about the nerdiest of nerdy things. Usually is video games, comics, and more. Today, we are just going to spend most of our time talking about the Xbox Series X launch and Game Pass and Sony with its Game Pass competitor. Well, yeah, I guess you would call it a Game Pass competitor. And I don't do this alone. I've enlisted the help of one of my favorite people to talk video games with, and honestly, one of the only people I give a fuck about opinion wise in video games, Mr. Aaron Rand Freeman. What's going on, brother?
Hey, what's going on, my friend? It's a pleasure to be here. Talk some game shit with you. Absolutely enjoyable.
We were laughing at me being old with technology here because Skype has changed everything, and I am a little rusty, if you can't tell. Had to get the gum off my boots. So bear with me while I go through this, getting back into the hosting chair. Aaron, how you been, man? It's been a minute since we talked on mic.
No, I've been doing all right. Playing video games, passing the time, obviously. Uh, yeah, enjoying my new console, which we'll get into a little bit later. It is a delight. Um, and yeah, trying to just bumping into games as I go is really the best way to put it because I spend a lot of time shopping for games and buying games and enjoying them. It is my passion.
Yeah, and that's why, excuse me, that's why I enjoy conversations with Aaron is because he does take them kind of in the same light that I take them in is like actually having to think about the process of the game and what was the developer thinking when they made this specific platform in this series like real game design and I enjoy these conversations, so buckle up, this may be a nerdy one, even nerdier than usual. So we're going to talk about the Xbox Series X and the PlayStation 5. Aaron, you have the Series X, so let's give our impressions of the PlayStation 5 first.
Mhm.
Just because clearly neither of us has had an ample amount of time with it. So Sony PlayStation 5 did come out, and what was it, $4.99? If I'm not mistaken, let me double check.
I think it was $4.99 and $3.99 for the digital version without a disc drive.
Yes, that is correct. So yeah, $4.99 to $3.99, which is by far some of the cheapest launch consoles in, I think, history. I would say overall, this is the first generation that has made every generation of game system affordable. Because honestly, the Xbox should be a $700 box, and Sony should be right up there at about $600. If
I agree.
they were trying to make a profit, they're taking a loss on these systems, and you can tell by the simple fact of the specs. Sony has an SSD with a brand new architecture, right? So basically, they built their system from the ground up. What I think the most interesting thing about the PlayStation 5 has been is their hard pivot in the opposite direction of Microsoft, and Nintendo as well, which that's a whole nother thing. But Aaron, what are your thoughts about the Sony PlayStation 5?
To be very blunt, it just seems like they're going and they are on their march. We are now kind of approaching the ceiling of game generations being a leap over. So it just seems like Sony is now stepping into the final. It's almost like the final console, where it's like, we are going to stop fucking around and we're going to give you a computer, a budget gaming PC, and call it a console, and that's where we're at. But for the most part, I think Sony PlayStation 5 is the most consistent game console out of all the game consoles, where Sony is doing the thing that they were doing in 1995,
right,
and continuing to do that right now, and at a high level. By the way, there's nothing wrong with that. PlayStation 5 is very much like the Mission Impossible movie. None of them are bad. All of them are loud. They don't make them like that anymore, but the Mission Impossible movies are very good.
Yes. Yeah. So where exactly, just to kind of piggyback on, what you're going to get with Sony, just like Aaron said.
Right.
I think of them, of Sony in general, especially first party games. I think of them as big blockbusters. You're going to get your Nathan Drake, and you're going to get God of War, right? Like, you're going to get these big, high-budget pieces that are like system sellers in a lot of ways. And they're not going to really care about your indie games, or they're not going to really care about promoting anything other than those games. Hell, they will take your game off. And we'll get to that in a little bit later, but they will literally take your game off their shelves because they have a certain standard, and I'm okay with that. So, Aaron, you have the Xbox Series X. I have not been fortunate enough trying to raise a daughter to get my own yet, but that is in progress. How have you liked it so far? How was the process of getting one, and just your overall feelings about the box?
I paid the elite scalpers at StockX to get one. Funny enough, when I saw it, the console was $100 more than retail, and it's still the cheapest console I've ever bought because it's the only console I've ever bought without buying anything else. In fact, it's the opposite. I bought the console and used every single thing from my Xbox One X on it. I literally removed the console from its shelf, plugged in the Xbox Series X using all the original cords, and went on about my business. I even set the console up on my phone. I barely had to use the controller. I didn't use the new controller until Erica had asked me about how the new controller felt, and I realized I hadn't been using it for 2 days. So it's very much like upgrading your cell phone. And for those that value that part, because I realize that there isn't a larger part of the gaming community that like the bright and shiny new, and I think PlayStation does that better. They put a little more sparkle on the new, even if it's not new. Sony will embellish. And at this point, Microsoft's been very workmanlike about it. It's like, this is like upgrading to a new cell phone. And that's exactly what I wanted.
Right.
And it's exactly what I got. And I really enjoyed that quite a bit, to be very honest.
Just to piggyback on what you said about Sony, I didn't want to get away from it before we went on. Very, very big and very bold, but they also work with the developers that are in their orbit, like the ones that they really, really depend on. They give them the magic tools. Like God of War looked amazing 4 years ago, whenever it came out.
Right.
It shouldn't have looked that good on a PS4. And I played it on a base PS4, and it looked amazing.
Right.
Sony does that with like Last of Us 2. Played it on a base PS4. Amazing looking. Like the
one of the funny things about that is it the same can be said for Xbox games. It's just the Xbox One base is such a terrible console.
It's such a bad console.
It's such a terrible box in terms of hardware that all the Xbox One exclusives got the most out of the console, but the console was so substantially less powerful than a base PS4 that it was laughable. Yeah. And as a result, Xbox One exclusives, which are maximizing, like, I always like to point at Halo 5 for maximizing literally 100% of the console's architecture to then look pretty much average, and in that game with literally zero artificial intelligence as a result. They literally had no reserve, no resources left after getting the game looking very, very good in spots. So it's very funny you say that. Yeah, it's just that. But I have a deep resentment as an Xbox fan. Like, I'm officially one. I enjoy the direction that Microsoft is going. I will comfortably say that the base Xbox One is one of the worst consoles and one of the biggest ripoffs, and I deeply despise it. And I like the fact that they went in the way hard in the other direction and just started putting computers in boxes. Base Xbox One was terrible. As an Xbox fan, I realize this now. I'm an Xbox fan. I've enjoyed every Xbox console. I think the Xbox 360 was the second best console ever beside the PlayStation 2. And I really like the fact that Microsoft has just decided that they were going to treat their consoles like cell phones and just literally focus on continuity over everything. But the base Xbox One was a mess. I hated that console. It was cheap plastic, bad specs, focused entirely around the fucking Kinect.
Yeah, oh my God.
Fuck?
So this is my thing. The thing with the Kinect is, if they were gonna swing all the way. Like, the problem was they were so afraid of whatever they were pitching.
Oh, no. They pitched it. Remember, the console was $500, mostly because of the camera. And the camera was such of incredible quality that, like, engineers used the camera. Like, Google, like, robotics people took the camera and used it for their project. They went all in on the worst thing. It's like investing several $100,000 on a catcher's and not a baseball bat.
Fair.
So,
it
was a bad move.
But along with that, they did have a lot of good ideas that Phil Spencer grabbed and said, you know what, we probably going to use these. We just going to use them in a different way. Because you remember when they had their, excuse me, my hands all over the place. When they had the game sharing, correct? Like, They were like, oh yeah, you can share with up to 10 of your people. You know, like, those remnants are still there. They just didn't have any horsepower. And like, I see why Halo looked like it did. You know what I'm saying? Like, it was disrespectful to that legacy in general, which is why I'm very glad that Phil Spencer was like, nope, we're going to hold off. I know I sound like a Sony or Xbox fanboy. I'm really impressed at the turnaround that they've had. And just like these last 24 months, it's been really incredible. So we were talking about Series X, but overall you said you do like the Series X, correct?
Yeah. I will say this, that I play Destiny. Destiny was my launch title for the Series X, and just being able to see that game step up to the PC version of the game was worth the money for me personally. Now, that's a super subjective opinion. I think you have to make sure you look very closely at what you want to play on it. And if you cannot put a finger on it, then you can wait. I wanted to play Destiny, and I deeply, deeply wanted an upgrade from my console. I wanted to narrow that gap between my console and a PC, and the fact that they were just going 1-to-1, and this is actually a very cheap gaming PC. That's what I wanted. So I knew what I wanted, but you have to be very blunt about it. I say that because I don't think certain things like PlayStation 5 is culture, so people want it.
Exactly. Yeah, I agree with that.
I always ask myself, why do I want this thing? So it's like, if you're getting an Xbox, I'm not gonna lie, Xbox is not culture. It isn't like PlayStation isn't. So it is. So you think about it. I think it's fan-fucking-tastic, and also it is the only console that plays Cyberpunk in quality mode.
Oh boy.
I mean, we're not. I mean, as that chip has that. I mean, like I said, there's like, it's weird because like, it's like watching half of a ship fly into space and land safely, and then the other 90% of it crash into Earth into a fireball, and no one survives. So it's like you're sitting there on your planet, and you're sitting there on your safe planet, and you're like, well, fuck, and it's like 20 of y'all, but like 800 niggas die. You're just like, this cancer-free, full healthcare, basic income, but gigabit internet living is fucking superb.
Like,
but
living in a panorama. But anyway, so overall, these consoles, so price alone shows two different thinking. Like, Sony wants you to know, like, hey, you're paying for something that's premium. Like, we didn't speak about it, but I've had some time with the controller. That thing is wild. I didn't believe it until I played the Astro's Playroom, like the pack-in.
Mm-hmm.
Dog, I'm shocked. Like, the sand felt like sand that was blowing on the controller. You had to blow into the mic, and depending on how hard you blew into the mic, that's how fast the little Astro went in the platformer. It was wild. So I'm really curious to see if developers hop on that, because I do believe Xbox, they have the trigger option, right? It's not the full controller.
Oh no, they don't have the whole controller doesn't have that, but they have an incredible amount. They have feedback triggers, and they have like lots of ranges of rumbling and stuff that just no one ever uses it.
Exactly, but if it's in there and it's a benefit for both consoles at this point, like, I could see developers before not doing it, because why would you if it's only for the Xbox platform, right? But now, if you can get something even comparable to each other, because the thing, it's the triggers, right? Like, it's not just the vibration, it's the fact that, like, when you pull the triggers, there's an amount of tension there that I don't think I've ever felt. Like, it's a snap to it.
Right.
That, like, you feel like you're going to break it. Almost.
I was reading about Cold War doing it with the trigger pulls of different guns.
Oh my gosh, I can't even imagine.
Right. It's actually so realistic that it's disruptive in multiplayer, but it's a lot of fun in single player. People turn it off.
Oh, yeah. I guess it would be kind of disruptive if you're used to
fire fast because you're firing a real gun, which inherently will fire slower.
Right.
And so it's actually really strong in that game, and generally a really strong feature. And really, the best thing I can say is I hope that everybody stays with it, because what happens is consoles come out with these features, and it's one of the reasons. It's one of the things that we learned from the failed Xbox One base launch was that we have all these features, but at the end of the day, the developers are going to just make games as they have to make games for 9 platforms.
Exactly.
So they're going to just make games. So let's hope they stay with it. Good luck. We're gaming is a multi-platform medium now.
Yeah, absolutely.
Remember when games were so console specific that they would have the same game would be two different things?
Dude.
Like, remember the Nintendo version of a game, the Super Nintendo version of a game, the Genesis version of a game were like the Super Nintendo and Genesis versions of X-Men games. They would come out at the same time, but they would be two whole ass different fucking games.
And it wouldn't even be like little things. It would be big ass things like levels missing. Like what?
Right. And it would just go, it's
or remember when Nintendo Nintendo is its own separate problem. Me and Aaron in the last 3 times we've tried to record this have come to the conclusion that we thank God that they have not decided to pull the trigger on any of their properties in like a heavy way. But next year is the year of Mario, if I'm not mistaken. And
Nintendo is getting the most out of all of their movements, if that makes sense. If you want to think, my favorite thing is when you look at Nintendo presentations, they'll show you 6 games, and you'll be like, "Oh, they only showed us 6 games." But if you look on Twitter and if you look on the chat,
yep.
those 6, the crowd is fucking losing their mind. So it's like it's more important to have. Imagine a product that has 100% approval rating from everyone who buys it. So that's like, even if it's less people than you might think, and it's not because it's fucking Nintendo, everyone loves their Switch. And everyone loves the games that they're bringing out, and they love the direction that Nintendo's going in. And there's something to be said for the craftsmanship and precision of that, of catering to such a vast majority of your fan base at once perfectly. Yeah.
So for me, Nintendo, and exactly everything you said, correct. It also, their games that they do craft, not only does it have such precision, it plays completely different in most cases than you'll ever expect a normal like Xbox or Sony game to come out. They're always going to have some unique hook that, like, for example, Breath of the Wild 5 years ago came out, 4 years ago,
right.
Still plays differently than, and more, they are still finding things to do with those basic 4 elements tool set in Breath of the Wild. Some of the
right.
videos that have come out of things that people can do, like fly across the world, like Nintendo perfected an open world sandbox. That's impossible. They did it. Can you imagine if they said, "Hey, let's put $500 million in a Mario game"? Can you imagine if they got like Cyberpunk budget for a Mario game?
Right.
So,
and fascinating is that they don't need to. And I think somewhere along the line they realize that going big is costly.
Yes.
And they don't have to spend it to get there. They don't have to spend it to succeed. And frankly, everyone's going to, like, I'm not going to lie to you. Only Sony is left. Microsoft has abandoned that.
Yeah, absolutely.
And you can't make the money back on your console in this old monolith Godzilla kaiju fistfight manner of console warfare. You can't make your money back. You have to find another way. Nintendo's found their own way. Microsoft has found their own way, which is essentially competing with Netflix and such. And Sony is kind of still trying to throw hands with no one in particular.
Yeah, like they are the bully in the parking lot saying who wants some. They just in there trying to fight somebody. Like
right.
Even Stadia is like, we guys. So the one we need to watch out for is that Amazon Lumberyard. They just started up about 5. They're in open beta right now. So we're starting to see like things come out about it. And they are saying that, I mean, Stadia basically already, I won't end them, but they have a long road to climb. They're saying that they are way better than Stadia and GeForce now. So I'm really curious to see what they do overall with this game streaming. And speaking of, did you have? You do have Game Pass, I would imagine.
Of course, I have an Xbox. That'd be insane.
I had to talk to somebody and talk them into Game Pass.
I understand it's insane either way. Like it's almost like buying a console but not buying a second controller.
Right. Well, yes.
No, I mean like old school. Like it's an old school problem. Like when you buy a console and you didn't buy a second controller and a memory card. You know what I mean? Like Game Pass is how you maximize your Xbox console at this point. It's just it is something that it's increasingly common sense, but will eventually it will become universally understood that is how you maximize your Xbox console. Me, I know better, so I have Game Pass. So please continue.
And what's wild is, so we talked about Game Pass last RUNE as well, but I just want to say and reiterate: if you are a parent, there is absolutely no reason that you should not have Game Pass. You know that Minecraft subscription that you're paying every month? It's on Game Pass for free. All the kids' games that just randomly rotate, they're on there as well. Any kids' game like that they have this game called Grounded. Me and Aaron played a little while ago. It's had 17 updates since the last time we played. Aaron, do you know there are koi fish in that pond now? And there's an underwater laboratory in there?
I have no doubt.
Yeah. So, like, I really hope this generation leads to us getting weird again. You know, like I want big publishers to be able to, like, get crazy again and just, like, branch out. And I think a lot of that will depend on the success of Game Pass, but their attach rate is ridiculous. It's like 75% of all consoles have Game Pass, which, I mean,
like I said, it's like having a second controller in 1998.
Yeah. So kind of been our impressions of the consoles that have come out. There was a bunch of other stuff I was going to talk about. The Game Awards happened. I guess I'll run through a few of these. I won't talk about all of them. Just kind of the standouts to me. Did you see that Disco Elysium Final Cut was announced? You said what?
I said yes.
And voiceover for everything. So now I'll play that game. I wasn't going to play that game with all of that fucking reading and no voiceovers. Like listen, I listen and read everything. Like I always have my subtitles on. But if you telling me I ain't got no choice, no, I don't know about that. And Disco Elysium always looked good. So I was glad it's coming out on the Switch of all places. Your evil superheroes.
Listen, man, I'm excited to play it. It was one of those. It's one of those PC games that I just kind of twiddled my thumbs because every game, like because of my backlog. I realize this now because of my backlog. I tend to catch games late.
Yeah, same.
So I don't really care what comes out when. So I saw it on PC and I was like, oh, I really would like to play this, but I'll wait my turn.
Annapurna Interactive and Fulbright. Did you see that Open Roads trailer? It's kind of like a narrative game.
I didn't see the trailer. That was I actually have that paused.
Yeah,
one of my video. I got interrupted, but yes, I saw. It looked interesting though.
It looks like one of those Fulbright games. Like it's just got some style. You know, like all of their games, Annapurna and Fulbright, they all look different. And I appreciate that. They're all really well written. So like I said, I'm looking forward to that. They didn't give a date for that. Dragon Age had a teaser. I'm not a big Dragon Age guy, but it looks okay. I don't know much about the story. I'm not saying that. I'm just worried about BioWare in general. So I am not as excited as I once probably would have been. Dragon Age 3 just kind of blew it for me. What about you, Aaron?
I'm a big Dragon Age fan. What I find BioWare is doing is overthinking it a bit. They brought out Andromeda, and then because it had glitches, then they pulled the plug on Andromeda. And then they put out Anthem, a game that didn't need to be a live service game. It could have actually been like Spider-Man and would have been fine.
Oh my God, it would have been so much better if they had time to craft that world.
Yeah, if it just began and ended 50 hours later, it would have been great. Things like that. So it's like, and they're bringing back Mass Effect. And so it's like, but they're not continuing Andromeda.
Nope. So they did say that they, not in so many words, basically said that they are going to be continuing both stories. How? I have no fucking idea since
the story of Andromeda and the story of the original trilogy.
Yes, it's basically in the trailer where they show the Andromeda like Milky Way, or I guess, and then they show Liara at the end of the trailer. So,
and that's what I mean is they're overthinking this.
Yeah, like
just
what the fuck is happening?
Continue the story of Andromeda.
Yeah, like what? Why do we need both? Why is Liara here? Like,
I'm not gonna lie to you. Mass Effect ended, and that's fine. One of the reasons why Dragon Age people keep asking for Dragon Age stories is because Dragon Age hasn't ended.
Yes,
if
that is
Dragon
true.
Age would end, then we would be fine with it. Mass Effect ended, and then they started it again, which is fine, but just continue that story then. Dragon Age, and I don't understand why they keep making everything but Dragon Age.
Whoa, they're scared, dog. Can you imagine if you fuck this game up?
I
This
mean,
is it. This is the last BioWare game. If this happens and it's fucked up, all their heavy hitters are done. They don't even get a chance to make the new one.
BioWare is supported by EA. BioWare will always get swings, especially after Anthem.
Well, yeah, I guess.
Like Anthem would have tanked another studio. And frankly, we have one of the benefits of Cyberpunk, which I'll reference now forever, is that we've never seen a real collapse before until now. Like, this is a real collapse.
Absolutely.
Like a real issue that happened. But a lot of this other stuff is just a lot of stuff blown out of proportion or terrible decisions by comparison. BioWare will be allowed to BioWare infinitely because even though people complain, BioWare games sell.
They definitely sell. Like, as much as people complained, Anthem sold quite a bit. And for all it's worth, people played the fuck out of that game when it first came out. Like,
Anthem was better than Avengers.
Yeah, let's
making the same mistake. It was much better than Avengers.
Yeah, and I played Avengers and beat Avengers, or so-called. Like, I leveled to 80, and that Kate Bishop DLC came out. Touched it for like 5 minutes. Was like, I'm good. I still hope in the back of my head, like, man, I really hope they mess with Anthem again.
Anthem had the benefit of being actually the minute-to-minute gameplay of playing as the javelins and flying around and fighting was fun.
And getting a crew
it's the opposite problem with the Avengers. Avengers is fun in hour 70 or 80. Like, I've seen Endgame Avengers. It actually looks like the Avengers. It's actually quite amazing. But the point of the game is to grind to that degree through an incredible obstacle course of glitches and just a lack of fun.
Yeah.
To the point where you really do actually look exactly like Captain America. And Anthem, you immediately come out and the first thing you do is fly around and feel powerful. And then the game kind of peters out as it tries to give you things that you really don't need. So
if Anthem would have been exactly what because they're in the process of redoing Anthem. I don't know. It'll probably be a couple years off, I would imagine, at least a year. But whatever they're doing, they have some like sky pirate theme. Yeah, count me in. Yeah, just give me some pirates in space. Great. Destiny is nothing but zombies that for good. Fuck it, I'm in. The story goes from there. But overall, like I said, I'm really looking forward to seeing what they actually put out as gameplay. Because they have been holding back this game for quite a while, talking about Dragon Age 4. Also, did you get to see that Crimson Desert trailer for the MMO?
Yes, I have.
That mother. Hey, listen. I play Black Desert because of Game Pass, and they basically bribed me to play it, and by saying, "Hey, we'll give you more points, and we'll give you things that normally you would have to pay a whole bunch of money in Black Desert for to level your character. Please play this game." They basically gave me $40 worth of gifts to play the game. So I've been playing Black Desert. Crimson Desert looks amazing because I can already see playing Black Desert. I can see exactly that gameplay. That's real. I guarantee you there's no faking that. That is 100% real-time gameplay. And the reason I say that is Black Desert plays like that right now. So if you are into MMOs, I would definitely keep this in the back of your head. Are you? You're not really into MMOs though, are you?
No. I follow them. I watch them. I've seen copious amounts of Black Desert and generally MMOs. I do follow them around. So yes.
I think with Crimson Desert that the combat system is so easy to pick up with you. That might be the one that catches you. Like, it is really a deep and kind of rewarding combat system, and they drop characters like every 3 months, and these characters play wildly different. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to Crimson Desert, and finally, this indie game called Season. It's for the PS5, and I'm really just digging the movement of black girls going out and exploring the world. Like, give me more of these games. I don't know what it's about, but I'm in. What about you, man?
That's how I feel about it. I'm not gonna lie to you. If you there is a, let me see what the name of this game was. Scroll up here. Sephiroth Century. Chia.
Yes, yes.
And it's just an open world game with a little black girl. And sure. And that's how I feel about the representation, to be honest with you. It's like anything that I see a black person doing, anything, you have piqued my interest 100%.
Shout out to Spiritfarer as well.
Yeah, I believe in genre pieces. Like,
yes.
That's the point of the genre piece, is so that you can do different stuff with it. Like, people complain, if people are like, this game is too much like this other game, which doesn't work. The point of a game being like everything else is so that you can start to experiment with it. That's why the genre piece exists.
Yeah, man. You got to, like, this is what I'm always kind of shouting. Games haven't gotten weird and, like, experimental. Like, when's the last Jack and Daxter, like, whoa moment that you've had? Like, overall, like, God of War was one of those for me, I will admit. The new God of War was like, whoa, this is a seat change. This is a next gen game. But I haven't had many of those moments this generation. And I think a lot of it is because we missed the B game. Like, there's no B game. The indies have taken over that. But either you're catching smaller, kind of all-encompassing works like Dead Cells, or you're going to get, like, those mid-tier Annapurna interactive kind of indie games. But they're still not that hardcore, like, solid B game. Like, what's the Wolverine game that came out? That was like it came out on Xbox, and it was like the only Wolverine X-Men game that was great. God, I can't remember the name of it. But games like that, where it's really a one-off, and you're only getting that game. Have you thought about that for a while? Like, the B game is gone, man.
I mean, the way I think about it is that the ceiling on the B game has gone up as AAA games become large barges. I think what happened was we used to get, there used to be a lot of energy going into the B game from the AAA developer. The idea that games now exceed the budgets of movies is new, and there was a point where it wasn't like that. And now, so some games that are big are so fucking big. They're like these massive installations. So it's like at this point, it's like the B game ceiling has gone up, and it's like
Fair.
so that's how it's a little different. So AAA developers will not invest in B games, but the quantity of B games and quality of B games, indie games, AA games, those games they've all raised the ceiling and taken up the space. Like, how many games are now so reasonably close to the AAA popular version of the game? You know what I mean? Like something like Blazing Chrome, for example,
Oh my God,
compared to Metal Slug, or something like Mortal Shell compared to Dark Souls. It is not Dark Souls. It is 1/5 the length. But the fact that it can stand toe to toe for a few rounds is a good thing, and that wasn't always the case.
Yes. And it comes a lot of them come out of nowhere now. Like,
right.
It's so many games. And one thing I will say about the indie movement that at first Sony did embrace, but their store now is a mess, and you really can't find anything. But Microsoft really embraced them indies in the last like 4 years, and have really gotten Epic as well, really gotten behind these indies, giving them money, giving bigger contracts to say, hey, go make games for us, and go, like I said, just let's go get weird. What's your craziest idea? I want to hear it. Which is how you're getting all these like uniquely told stories. In game. Like, we don't get a Tell Me Why, or we don't get a Life is Strange. If like the indies aren't given them, a shot to make it.
Right.
So, last off, and oh yes, we weren't gonna do questions. I'm not gonna do questions this time because this is really more of a video game show. But we are gonna record in 2 weeks, and we'll get to the Star Wars questions, and I promise I'll answer them there. So, Cyberpunk 2077. 8 years ago, they got on stage and said, we are going to be the next generation of gaming. Cyberpunk 2077 came out this week. And now Cyberpunk 2077 is no longer on the PlayStation Store. It's Thursday. What happened? What happened?
This is like one of those ridiculous car accidents where you see the car upside down on top of the donut shop. And you're like, before you're even mad, like you turn around and your kid put the car in the donut shop and you're not even mad. The first thing is, how the fuck did you get this car on the donut shop, my dude? Like, walk me through this process. I'm not even mad. Just how?
I don't think I've ever seen such a large game have such a historically bad launch. And I mean, not just the game being horribly buggy. I mean, buggy to the point to where this seems like kind of malicious in a way. Like they didn't give review codes for the Xbox and PlayStation versions, not even Series X. All they gave was PC codes to select outlets. And even those select outlets, when they were allowed to release their footage, which, they did threaten, even though the game got out, hey guys, just going to let you know, you get caught streaming this game, we're going to DMCA it. Like, yeah. So they put it out, and even the initial takes were lukewarm, and we're always like talking about how the game seemed off in a lot of ways, and I mean, generally talking about the bugs. And then the game came out on consoles. And I hate the term next gen console. Like, dude, 75% of the people that are playing this game are playing this on an Xbox One or not even an Xbox One X. Like,
Yep. Yep.
and the way that they shoved this game out, if I had a Xbox, I would be livid. This game is broken, man. And this is the same shit they did with The Witcher.
And the funny thing is, I'll say it is. A lot of things they did with The Witcher in terms of narrative and putting out a unfinished game, one unpunished for the most part. And I feel like this is a lot. This is them getting away with a heist and trying to rob a larger bank with better security and getting caught.
They
really shouldn't have, because like Witcher was flawed, and there's a lot of issues with the Witcher narrative. I mean, a lot of issues with the design of the Witcher in terms of open world and everything. We can go into that. That's a whole episode I can not get into. But with Cyberpunk,
dissecting The Witcher is a whole nother thing, dog.
And it goes to like a CD Projekt. They are very flawed, very messy auteurs. Their ambition is met, but they're so messy, and we're just gonna say that we're just gonna keep it in the park here and say that Cyberpunk is a game that it heavily relied on the base consumer, not concerned console gamer, not concerned about tech specs.
They literally got by on their marketing for 4 years.
Mm-hmm. And the worst thing is, there was no fucking way that game was going to run on an Xbox. And that was the first thing I said years ago. When they showed me that shit 5 years ago, I was like, there's no way this is running on my Xbox One. Because as I said at the top of the show, Xbox One was a terrible, underpowered, horrendous console that killed Halo.
You know what's funny? I didn't even think about it because I jumped out of my Xbox so quick into a One X that I was like, oh yeah, I didn't even think about this not running on my system.
And then I saw it running again a year ago, and I was like, I don't know if that's...
Yeah. That's when
the major problem, the thing that happened with the Xbox One X is there are very few games developed to it. Every game got upgraded for it, which was effectively like a PC game having a version set to medium-high setting.
Exactly.
There was no game developed for the Xbox One X. So even then, I had to keep my eye on the Xbox version, because what would happen on the One X is that you're playing the Xbox One version with just a better computer, so it's not killing your hardware to run it.
Right.
So when thinking about it, I'm like, this is still gonna chug on my Xbox One X, especially because they went to the great lengths to make sure to show us as little of the open world in action as possible in an open world game. And when they do that, boy,
that's what blew me. It didn't really hit me until about 4 weeks out that when they did whatever their last because the amount, how much money do you think they spent on PR alone? Because the amount of places I'm seeing this game is GTA levels of seeing.
It is definitely the most anticipated game of the last 3 or 4 years, honestly. I would say probably Red Dead Redemption 2, and then this, and then the odd Call of Duty. But I would say that as far in my experience, it's probably the most anticipated game. It would be able to have a good match with Red Dead Redemption 2 in terms of the most anticipated game by the average person.
I would say the Cyberpunk, just because of the amount of time we knew it was in production. Like, the thing with Red Dead was, you always heard it might be in production, but with Rockstar, you literally have no idea until they drop a trailer and say, hey.
They don't talk about it.
Yeah. And for better or for worse. So that anticipation cycle, I think it was it was quick. It was like 9 months.
Rockstar said we're done with Red Dead and we're cleaning up Red Dead. Get ready for Red Dead, and then they put out Red Dead.
CD Projekt Red, as late as when was the last delay? Like 6 months
Uh,
ago?
it was supposed to come out January, then it got pushed all the way back to September, then October, then December.
Right. And sometime in between there, they had the audacity to say it'll be done when it's ready.
I mean, which is fair. I love hearing that. It's not like, personally, anytime a game gets delayed, I'm happy. It means that I get to work on my backlog while they hand me a finished game. I was never one of those people excited to play Cyberpunk. I mean, I was interested in it, but I was never one of those people chomping at the bit to play it because it seemed like it needed time. I think all open world games need time unless they come off a conveyor belt and have an established formula, like when Ubisoft puts out their open world games for the most part. A lot of them are solid because of that.
Yeah.
But,
Ubisoft definitely has a climb that tower formula that I can get behind. So
right. They make packaged meals, you know what I mean? They make Lunchables. And they do that. Cyberpunk was on some other shit. And I was like, whatever they're doing here, if they're going to, because it's funny. Remember the reason why I knew Anthem wasn't going to work as a live service game was because all of the cutscenes were in first person.
Yes.
One thing about Destiny, they had to really remove the use of cutscenes and then go in. It was what the problem with Destiny 2 was. They had to go away from cutscenes and go with text-based storytelling because a lot of mediums don't lend itself. It's just manpower intensive to have a constant living narrative in every step. So to see what Cyberpunk was trying to do, which was stretch that out over 100-hour-long open world game where people opened doors for you and things happened, and every time you met a person, there was a real interaction. You walked to a door, someone let you in, handed you a drink, you drank the drink, you went and laid down on the couch, you talked to them, you got up, you got in your car, and you drove away. For 100 hours of an open world game, will need work forever.
It's batshit crazy. It's batshit crazy.
Right, and I was like, if they're going to persist with this, like when I saw it, I was like, there's no way this is going to persist. But if they continue to assert that this is what their game is going to be, I was like, there's no way this is fucking going to happen.
And the wild part is, some certain, keep in mind, I will say, I bought Cyberpunk because I hate myself. I knew it was going to be bad.
Ain't nothing wrong with buying. Listen, you bought Cyberpunk. It's part of the culture now. And as a gamer, there's no reason to not play Cyberpunk.
I had to see.
You have an Xbox One X. You had a reasonable enough jacket to go outside.
Like my One X, I'll say that the bugs are awful, and some of the pop-in is bad. But overall, like my One X has been fine. Like I'm catching the same bugs that PC players are catching, where it's like hard crashes and things like that. But that's every generation doing that. So like, with the One X, it looks like everything's just a little washed out because of the HDR settings. Whatever the fuck they did, the same thing happened with Red Dead, where it was like a fake HDR that they used.
Right.
And it washes out the color. So if you take that off, it looks fine. But the audacity of these people. So it hasn't just been that. What's that one book that we read as kids? Ramona Quinn, Good, Bad, Terrible, No Good Day, or some shit like that. Yeah, they're having a good, bad, no terrible, bad day, nigga. Like they're the worst day of all time.
They really should have just been very honest about it. This is the problem. They said it was fine, and that's the worst part. Is that CD Projekt went on record. A lot of guys, one of the execs went on record is saying the base console version will be fine, when everyone was already worried. If they had said, because they made it from the top down. Usually they go the other way, which is why I was talking about earlier. There's never been a game developed for like the PlayStation 4 Pro or the Xbox One X. They just get upgraded. This is the opposite. They made the game for high-end PCs and rolled it back down. They just couldn't get it all the way back down to the ground floor. They didn't have enough paint.
Yeah, like they vastly underestimated how low power that system is for either one of them.
Someone along the line must have forgotten, and I get it in a long journey, how how terrible the Xbox One is.
It's bad, dog.
There's no way you're getting that fucking game on it. And the thing about it is, like, comparatively, you're not getting anything on an Xbox One. Like, even something like Resident Evil 2 runs terribly on an Xbox One, and it tries real hard. But again, you know what I mean? Like, you have it's disingenuous to not communicate to the audience, because if you have a console, you're literally not thinking about this. I'm a person who treats I'm a console gamer with a PC gamer mindset, so I'm into it. It's part of my hobby. So but having a console gamer is not worried about it, and it's just you gotta be honest, dog.
But what's wild is, so within this week, the reason that it got pulled down, besides the crazy amount of bugs, which the frustrating part of this game is certain parts of it, like the third person shit, they pull off. Like some of those, like if you can get past the ridiculous late title card, I'm not going to tell you how late it is. It's fucking late. So you get past the title card and you get into some of these first real missions where you're going into like the Mind Palace and all that shit. Those cutscenes are great. Like you're able to look around, you know, the character is invested, but they're set pieces. And when you get out into that open world, it's fucking chaos. And dildos everywhere. Dude, the amount of dildo. So that's another thing. Aaron said this one of the 42 times we've recorded, and I didn't really think about it until he said it. They made this game as almost like a fuck you to people that genuinely love Cyberpunk. Like, can you explain what you meant by that a little bit?
First I have to reference The Witcher. The Witcher 3 specifically, because The Witcher 2 was fun and The Witcher 2 was great. But by The Witcher 3, they had abandoned the actual core narrative of who Geralt is. Geralt is a introvert who prefers the company of literally everything but humans.
Exactly.
And for Witcher 3 to be a game almost entirely about Geralt interacting with only the most vile, dirty, racist humans for 200 hours while his daughter travels through fucking time, it undermined the point of the character to such an extreme degree, but everyone thought it was fine because it was ambitious, and it was well done. For a long time, I was perfectly fine with it. And then it kind of started to dawn on me that this isn't a Witcher story. They've missed the point of Geralt.
Exactly.
And they're just doing what they want. And I'm looking at the Cyberpunk story, and I'm thinking, and I didn't realize the Cyberpunk meant so much to so many marginalized people.
You have
I know that. I thought it had a following, but I didn't realize how many LGBTQ folks followed, how many people of color cared about Cyberpunk, that the creator was black, who made it for this purpose.
Yes. Dude, do you know what the Voodoo Boys originally were?
Who?
The Voodoo Boys in the game are actually Haitian. In the game, in the rule book, they're just like posing white boys with dreads. Right? Like the decisions that they make are very interesting. And I wonder how Mike Pondsmith feels about this. Because he was like months.
Because they paid him. I mean, when did he make Cyberpunk? What year did he make Cyberpunk?
1985. It was right when I was born. Like first time I played was 92.
Any idea how much they paid that motherfucker? Because I'm not gonna lie to you. Somebody rolled up on me and said, "We want to make a movie out of Unreasonable Friday," and they gave me the right amount of money. I wouldn't give a fuck what they made. Fuck what they made, dude. You give me. I always say this. I'm a man of dignity and principles, but I have a price. It's a high one, but if you meet it, then you bought me. And he has nothing to say, the same way George R.R. Martin has nothing to say. There's nothing. I don't care.
Yeah.
I don't care. If he made that game 30 years ago, then bro, this is a shock to him.
No,
same way it was a shock to the guy who wrote The Witcher, that miserable Polish man.
Oh God, he's awful.
He's awful fellow, but you know what they did? They paid him, and he shut up.
He did shut the fuck up.
He shut the fuck up, and frankly, I don't blame him. He got paid for The Witcher. The Witcher was not popular immediately.
Hey, and he got HBO money. I think it was that HBO money to shut him the fuck up. Like, because he was still talking about it during Witcher 3. Like, we still heard it.
They renegotiated, and then Netflix picked up the show.
Netflix.
He was fucking because they didn't pay him. They made The Witcher. They paid him once. They made 3 games paying once. He said, "What the fuck?" Everyone else was like, "CD Projekt, what the fuck?" They were like, "Bet." Paid him, and then they made the Netflix show. They paid him twice.
Yeah, that Netflix money is a different kind of money.
Right, and then he shut up. He was like, "All right, cool. All right, yeah, okay, all right, cool. Okay, I'm just gonna see you guys tomorrow."
But yeah, man, Cyberpunk means a lot, especially to me. Like, I grew up watching like Blade Runner and getting something totally different out of it than, like the Neuromancer, reading like all these great like sci-fi cyberpunk futures where it's like dystopia, but it was fighting against a man and minorities were in charge and kind of it was a war between everybody was down on their luck. So there was a equality there. It's like a stroke fight, kind of a camaraderie in the fight. And
right,
this is not that. It's like they said, we're gonna take the cyber portion of it and rely. Like, I expected them to be like, what is Cyberpunk now? If it happened, like if Cyberpunk 2020 was today, let's go 50 years in the future. When they were like, we're going to base it off what if Cyberpunk looked like from 1980. And that's a big difference. And you can see it.
I have a very unique perspective that I've been kind of cooking. Like, this is the first time I'm going to actually serve it. We do this thing with Japanese developers that we give them a long leash on other cultures.
Yeah.
Because they don't know. And they don't care, and they don't give a fuck. So like the fact that the member and the developers of Resident Evil said they did extensive research on Africa, and
that's the game we don't talk about.
He had like 10 Chrome tabs open. That was
clearly.
But we thought that was cool because we accept that from Japan that they don't know because they don't care, and it's okay. Cyberpunk is not American. It is Polish.
Polish, yeah.
It is Polish the way The Witcher was Polish. And that's the thing. Like, there's like people are asking about why is The Witcher I don't like the fact that it was monochrome. People are asking, why is The Witcher monochrome? Why is there representation like this? Why is Geralt around all these people? Same thing with Cyberpunk. What are you doing? Where's the representation? Why are you being so disrespectful of LGBTQ people? Why are the voodoo boys actually Haitian? That's not the point. Like you said, they're Polish.
Yeah,
they don't give a fuck.
Also, the politics in Poland right now are very interesting.
Rough.
So I'm sure in the 8 years that this was developed, because you see shining moments of Cyberpunk in there. Like, it's in there if you dig. Like the main story and a couple of the side quests. I'm like, well, how the fuck? And then you hear a dude like, hey, brother, got 16. Like, come on, bro.
Not everybody, right. And it's like in America, there's a bigger, the knockdown, drag out fight for representation is different everywhere. And it's represented differently in all the art. Cyberpunk is Polish.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying it's okay. I'm not saying they get away with it. It's just like, I'm like, this is how they see it. Now, my question always is, why Cyberpunk, guys? Like, I would love to know who pulled the trigger on Cyberpunk. Why?
Well, also, you got to think about it. 80s kids growing up in Poland, thinking about fighting oppression. I think they might know a thing or two about Cyberpunk. Like, they might relate to it. So I could see how those books and the board game related to it. But I think they just read the wrong thing out of it.
Right, and they bit off so much more than they could chew because they were like Cyberpunk, but then everybody else who got their life from Cyberpunk was also looking, and I think they didn't realize it.
Right.
Sometimes you sign up for an assignment, you sign up for a report, and as soon as you look up what you need to do, and all of a sudden you go, we're talking to how many people? This report is how many pages? And you're like, oh, I thought I was going to do a book report. I didn't realize I was going to need to do 28 pages of this shit. And it seems like that's what's gotten them narratively.
Yeah, narratively. Also, just to chime in, I heard this and I did look it up as well. If you look on the credits, there are 3 narrative translators total. So that means this was probably written in Polish.
Right.
Like, that's rough. Like, to have 3 people on this game with this much dialogue, I can't fucking imagine. I can't.
And again, I wouldn't have any problem with this. It seemed as though the advertising campaign, my issue wouldn't, if this game had come out, I wouldn't have issue with this. But I did take problem with the fact that during the advertising phase, whoever was responsible for it did not mind playing on both sides.
Oh, not at all. The trans shit that they pulled time and time again.
Right. It's like, we're making a game that's very inclusive, but then turning around and being like, LOL, inclusivity, and then fist bumping with the bigots too.
And that's another thing. This game is horny like a fucking 12-year-old. Like it is that type of horny. Right.
That opposite of maturity isn't it. Like this, like when you talk about a mature game, this is what you thought a mature game was in like 2005.
Exactly.
This is not maturity. Like this is just like tits and violence ain't the future, dude.
Yeah. We could keep going about just the overall.
I'll say one more thing. You know, it would be mature, and it's funny thinking about this, like, because it's totally unrelated, but slightly related. You know, what was mature? I realize this is like something like Iron Man 3.
Yes. One of the best Christmas movies in the last 15 years.
Yeah, it's one of the best Christmas movies of all time. Dealt with post-traumatic stress disorder and decided to make the topic Tony Stark's post-traumatic stress disorder. That's a mature movie. That's a lot of... Someone had pointed out... I was online and asked, why do people not like Iron Man 3? And someone who's in the military said that the depiction of post-traumatic stress disorder was so accurate in Tony Stark that it is an uncomfortable watch for him as an ex-Marine, as an ex-soldier. And it definitely would be an uncomfortable watch for everyone. But that's a mature game. Shiny tits and dildos ain't it.
Dog, I finished the mission, and I swear to you not, I have a screenshot of 26 dildos that I picked up in one mission. They just had to turn the dildo slider down. They had to issue a statement about the fact that they had to turn the dildo slider down. What kind of game were they making, bruh? Like, it's almost insulting in a lot of ways. Like, the edgelord way that they advertise this shit, and then it actually is in the game. Like, if there was a reason that everything was about sex, but it gives no context, it's just, here's some sex to have sex. No reason, so anyway. Also, Cyberpunk, I want to tell you about their great bonus system. So CD Projekt Red did announce that they are still going to give their employees their bonuses, regardless if they hit their Metacritic score or not. Aaron, I wonder why the game will come out before the end of the year. And if it's a game that is probably trash right before bonuses, why would you put that out? As an executive. I'm just curious, man. Like, I feel so bad for those developers. The 6 days a week that they were mandatory, mandatory 6 day weeks are awful. and should be outlawed, like straight up. And this is what you get from mandatory 6 days a week. Tired people.
They did it, by the way. Like, for all the glitches and everything in the game, they did it.
Oh yeah, the game is there.
The game is it's not there for everyone, but it's there, and that's fucking wild, man. They did it. They deserve their raises because they finished this shit.
There is a shootout, dude. There is a shootout sequence right after you get with Johnny Silverhand that is wildly impressive because of the ways that you can handle it. I saved and handled it because it's one of the open missions after you get Johnny, and handled it 3 totally different ways, like completely different. The NPCs reacted different. The cutscene was not even a cutscene, but the NPC reacted different. The game is in there. They just got to clean everything around it up. So it's a good thing that they did get their bonuses. But let me tell you also how the developers got bonuses. They were given, I want to make sure I get this right, excuse me. Bloomberg reported that some staff had said CD Projekt's bonus system, which involves handing out performance tokens to workers, encouraged them to crunch because to get the tokens, the developers wanted to show their bosses they were working longer and harder than their peers.
I asked this in the beginning of the show. What were the tokens for?
A nebulous amount of money or stock or who knows.
Okay, as long as they were like value.
So
I come from Destiny, so tokens might literally mean nothing. So that's why.
But then again, this stock has been plummeting. So what if it's stock? Like, you just gave them some trash, and then they gotta fix it. Like, they're not even done. I bet you they're working over Christmas. There's no way they're not.
100%.
You know, this is the type of thing that gets CEOs fired. Like, I don't think I've ever seen a video game implode in this way. And I'm not even gloating about it. Like, I'm genuinely a little, like, sad because I was looking forward to it. You know, like, I was hoping that it defied expectations and wasn't the edgelord bullshit that a lot of it is. Also, did you see the kids, dog?
Oh, what kids?
Holy shit. Next time you log into the game, please do it before they patch it. They just size down adults. I swear to God, dog, it's the creepiest looking shit I've ever seen.
I got little tiny grown people.
Dog. And they're and I'm gonna send you a clip when we get off here. But they literally are holding guns. One of the kids is like, no, what did he say? He's like, no hope, no hope. And I was like, the fuck is this?
And you know, it's funny. There's a whole discussion about the flawed open world that CD Projekt makes, by the way. Yes. The same thing with The Witcher. They did their open worlds are deeply flawed, but big. And it's just like, it's not like Rockstar makes open worlds where you can kind of interact with just about everything you goddamn see, but CD Projekt kind of makes these open world facades.
Every door is locked in Cyberpunk once you get to the city. Even if you have upgraded tech and like you can rip off doors, it's like, not this door. Every door but this one. Like, literally, it'll just say locked. Like, also, they built GTA. This is the end game, right? Like, Aaron, when I pointed it out to Aaron, he was like, okay, yeah, I see it. Like, the way you get missions, the way that the game is structured, you can just pop in new faces. It looks just like GTA. That's their end game.
Right. That makes sense. I mean, that's how you do open world content anyways. You just simply just provide new context for the world you've been in. An extra person, extra set of people, extra set of weapons, and some new context for the open world that you've been going back and forth over.
Yeah, so it's just been interesting to see them fail completely and see the discourse from I hate to say gamers because that word just kind of sends shivers down my. It reminds me of Gamergate whenever people say it. Unfortunately, but with people that enjoy video games, like the discourse has been all over the place so quickly. Like I've never seen a game. Well, I think No Man's Sky was the last one that really caught it like this.
Right.
And now they're trending because No Man's Sky just got an award for best ongoing game of all like the last 25 years. Like, are you serious? It beat Destiny.
Right.
Like,
I mean, No Man's Sky at this position is fucking superb. So yeah, I see it.
I'm blown away, man. Also, the project, just the last thing, just to let you know, not to have any sympathy for the bosses, they basically said they knew that they weren't spending enough time with the last gen consoles. But I'm like, you announced it 8 years ago on these consoles. Like, no, it was the in-game 360 game that, like, they announced it at the end of the 360. This was like a beginning of the generation game. Like, you knew what you were working with. It should, if anything, it should have worked the best on these consoles.
This is one of the few times a game has been developed, in my understanding, as like from the top down. Crysis was like that. They made it top. They made it top down. So
I just can't see how they, like, it's one thing to release a game that looks as bad as it does on last gen or, current gen to a lot of people, consoles. But it's another thing for the bugs that it has. Dude, there was a bug yesterday where I was walking up on a lady and I was just standing there. I'm like, I wonder what the fuck will happen if I just stand here. Because, if you drive a car in the city and just stop, everything stops on some Truman Show shit. Like, just the world, just like cars just don't go past you.
Right.
Like, I walked up on a lady, and these people are all dressed ridiculous. Like, the random clothes generator, they just said, fuck it. And she stopped in front of me, said some shit, and then, I swear to God, flew up into the sky and disappeared. I caught it on stream when I was streaming, and I was like, "Oh, okay, yes, great, yeah, that's absolutely what should happen." And then to top it off, I saw her walking down the street, probably three or four people later, because it's that buggy. So enjoy Cyberpunk, y'all. If you haven't gotten it now, I don't know when you'll be able to buy it on PlayStation.
They may not, like, I don't think it's gonna run on consoles. It doesn't look like something that will run on consoles. Even more than Crysis, because Crysis was, if you remember, Crysis was just a really big, detailed open world.
Yes, I remember Crysis. It was hard to run Crysis up until like 4 years ago.
And Cyberpunk has an incredible amount of detailed storytelling. That there's, like, the world building is the problem. The fact that you walk down the street and there is 14 stores and all the stores are lit up with proper signage.
Also, no load times. Once you're in the game, it's really no load times unless you die. That's a problem.
Right. And it's like there's so much happening. I don't understand how they bring this world onto the same console as like GTA 5. And GTA 5 is a big open world, but it's open and it's a little dry, just to say, because I'm fascinated by what they do with this and get this running on. I don't think it happens at all, and I think that's the situation that they're staring at. This doesn't work.
How quick do you think Microsoft follows suit? Because I bet you, also, I forgot about this part. When they gave their announcement, they basically threw it out to Sony and Microsoft without checking with them and say, hey, if you're not happy with the game, please go and get a refund from try and get a refund from PlayStation or Microsoft. Are you fucking kidding me? Like, this might be the end of the broken game in a lot of ways, because they took a chance on Cyberpunk. Like, they probably knew once it went gold, like, hey guys, we need to, this game is bad, but we're gonna patch it. Please let us insert this game. Because they had to know that game was broken on disc. So, like, what do you think? Do you think Microsoft follows suit in this?
Probably not, because their console generations are connected to each other.
Fair.
It's a different thing than what Sony's doing. PlayStation 4 and 5 are not connected. Sony can tether some games to one another and they'll try to like catch up, but that's not how Sony operates. One of the reasons why it's been taken off the store is because they ain't worried about PlayStation 4.
Yeah.
They're on their new shit. Xbox is always worried about the older consoles. Sony ain't worried about this PlayStation 4 shit. So they were like, y'all PlayStation 4 niggas got a problem. And they went in the bar and shot that dude and walked out of the fucking bar because they ain't about these PlayStation 4 problems.
But the thing is, they are giving them back on PlayStation 5 as well.
Right. They ain't about these problems because it's like, remember the, there's no such thing as a next gen version of Cyberpunk. Every version of Cyberpunk on next gen consoles is just running a backwards compatible version on better hardware.
Fair. Yeah.
It's not like there's no next gen version of Cyberpunk. Yeah. There's no Xbox Series X optimized version. I'm just playing the Xbox version on quality mode that can push it.
And what's wild is I don't see how they get some of these concepts are core to the game. Like, you can't add load screens to these games to time things out. That's a different game. Like, right. I don't know how they fix the computation problem that they're running into with this software. But you know, they threw it up in the air. I honestly think Microsoft might follow suit for one reason. Sony probably did this after a very quick conversation with CDPR. I bet Phil is on the phone right now. Like, if we can break this contract, we want to be the people that give our customers all options. You know, because they're that type of company right now.
Right.
So if Microsoft opens that up, that means Steam is going to open up. I wonder if they don't pull this for a little bit, man. Like, this is bad. Like, this might be the worst launch of a game I've ever seen in my 30 years.
It's the worst AAA launch of a game.
Yeah, absolutely. That's what I meant by that.
Definitely the worst. I've never seen a game this hype crash and burn in such a way, and such a predictable way.
Yeah, and now that you think about it, you saw it the whole time.
And the thing about my issue was CD Projekt. We all saw it. Like I said, with certainty of someone who lives this life, who looks at graphics, who pays attention to it, that's not running on my Xbox. But all of us were like, no. What up with this current gen videos though? So I just said it first, and then afterwards the mob came asking the same question. I was just like, oh, this isn't gonna run. And then I already left, and then I'm hearing on the news about how there are 5,000 people asking the same question at City Hall.
We all sitting there like, me and Aaron sitting over there in the corner like, hey guys, got a question here.
Right. And it's just like I I'm not taking any credit. I just pay attention to the stuff more. It's super disingenuous because we were all asking the question. Because even as we approached release, it went from Xbox One footage to
Yep.
Xbox One X footage. And I was like, they changed that
Yep.
to make it look exactly the same. The footage looked exactly the same from 2 years ago, except they said Xbox One X and they changed that. And I was like, okay. I was like, all right, guys. I see what you're doing. And people were asking about how is the next gen? How is the current gen version? How is the current gen version? And they were just like,
And they also the fact that they only gave reviewers 3 days.
right.
Like this game was coming in hot regardless, but that 3 days thing for like a 70-hour game, okay, yeah, it's coming in real hot. So overall, buyer beware. Like I said, I don't know what will happen by the time this comes out. But as of right now, you can get a refund on PS5 and PS4. I would assume Microsoft follows suit in some way. They're a little more lax anyway on returns. You can pretty much, if you talk to Microsoft,
You can buy a game. You can buy a game, rent it, and flip it to
Yeah.
Microsoft. They don't let you do it. They don't let you do it often.
but you can catch one every now and then.
Right. You could be like, I want to send this back. They'd be like that.
Like a bad indie game you might have just beaten. Like, I didn't like that. They might give you your $10 back. But yeah, overall,
You know, there's a I think it's 4 hours or something.
yeah, like it's
Have
an
a
actual
timer.
time frame.
Yeah, you have a timer on it, and if you don't play 4 hours, you can return whatever you just got.
So, but I'm sorry about the people that bought it on disc. Like, I don't see Walmart giving you your money back. Like, it's open. The game, it works. We sold you a disc. It works. Like, I definitely don't. Can you imagine GameStop actually allowing people to return this game?
I mean, they already got enough junk in their goddamn store.
I mean, you know how much money they would have to give out? Because they would have to. There would be lawsuits if this went that big.
I mean, we're in class action. I mean, the patch in February that they're talking about, which is probably mostly for current gen consoles.
Yeah, most definitely.
How that comes out.
And they already prefaced it, by the way, like it'll run, but it's not going to look like that shit you saw on TV.
Right. And if that persists, February is big. If they can't get the shit running, then the class action lawsuits will be here by the end of the year. So they've got till February or they're going to lose a lot of money.
And we forget why they got that Witcher money. They don't have no parts of that HBO deal. like
the worst thing is having a Series X and playing Cyberpunk. It's fine.
Yes.
And that's the worst thing about it is like I don't like I'm looking at this all happen and I'm like on Elysium and I'm just like this is like fuck. And it's like we have a problem. Like, there's a lot to Cyberpunk I'd like to talk about that we will never be able to get to.
It's so much.
The CG Project is a big, messy Polish auteur of a game development house. And it's messy. Cyberpunk is really fucking messy.
Polish Rockstar. Now, when you made that auteur kind of comparison, yes. Yeah, absolutely. Polish Rockstar. That's exactly what they are.
Right. So I would love to talk about what their narrative decisions are and the game design decisions are. We're probably never going to get there though, because this game is never going to run on base console, and they lied to everyone.
They lied to you. If you have an Xbox One, they lied to you.
Ooh, yeah, shit's never. Listen to us.
Do not get your money back.
Get your money back. That will never run on your base Xbox.
And if it does, you have to buy this you could never buy this on Xbox One. You would at least have to have a One X to even play this game, I would imagine. Like, at bare minimum. and with like some washed out textures every now and then and pop up. Like your pop in, your draw distance is awful. Like, but it runs, right? Like the big moments run. But if you have an Xbox One or PS4, you better take advantage of this, man.
And you might need to just like not even worry about it.
Yeah,
I think PS4 they'll get running horribly. Xbox One will never run.
Yeah, and I wonder how much Microsoft knew, or how much goodwill did they burn with their partners by doing this shit. Like,
right.
Like, I wonder if any other big game will ever be able to pull this big ass patch shit off again. Like, do we ever get a broken Call of Duty that has a 28, 30 gig patch? You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't think that ever happens again.
Usually some part of the game works. Like even something like Avengers, which was supposed to be the biggest disappointment of the year.
Wow.
It had
made about that.
Right, exactly. And it like stomped all over like the Avengers. Like whoever is the like Crystal Dynamics is like, whew, thank fucking God. Put the heat off us.
And look, they on the phone with the No Man's Sky guys like, listen, Sean, I got some questions. We out of the radar now. How did y'all do this shit?
Right. So this is the problem, is that CD Projekt is legitimately stuck. No Man's Sky needed time. The Avengers needs time. Cyberpunk 2077 on current gen consoles, the vast majority of the people still have them, especially after fucking the great scalper winter of 2020.
Jesus.
So many more people are stuck on base consoles than even they want to be on base consoles. They don't want to be on this shit. They can't get a fucking console to upgrade. So yeah, it's really bad. People are stuck. People are stuck with a version of a game they're stuck with, and that is those class action lawsuits are going to come in. They're going to come in from the sky like Zeus's lightning bolts, just plentiful, moving mountains and the oceans.
One last thing. I keep going on and on, but
right.
It really bothers me in one way. This is clearly a live game. Like all the things they're doing, you can see they're doing it to be a live game. They framed this as a narrative game and don't have any of those live components in there. So do we ever even see that live shit? Like, do we ever see what their complete vision was for this game?
No.
Yeah, I didn't think so either.
Maybe they were very stubborn with The Witcher, but The Witcher wasn't like this. The Witcher was well enough received. It wasn't deceptive.
Also, people had their hopes on this in the middle of this Panasonic.
Yeah.
So
it's a bad look across the board, and it's not really looking rosy. It's a clear divide between people who are having a fine version. And the thing about it is, they will only improve that version of the game.
Yes.
Like at some point, there will be a next gen Xbox Series X optimized version of Cyberpunk, and I will play it.
And it'll run great. Like it'll be fine. It'll probably also have the narrative hooks changed a little bit. I bet you those narrative issues and like the bugs, like kids getting sized down and shit like that, that'll all get patched out.
Yeah.
So you'll play a different game in a year and a half.
Absolutely, but I think that even in a year and a half, that's gonna be like let's hope that the scalpers release their stranglehold on consoles, and maybe just like Microsoft and Sony just starts airlifting new consoles to people.
It's really bad, man. Like it's crazy. I didn't think it was that bad until I sat in a line for Best Buy for 3 hours refreshing, and everybody on Twitter was having the same experience. And I was like, oh no.
Right.
Oh no.
It's a perfect storm.
I can't do this.
It's a perfect storm. Usually what happens is as a chunk of the online stock of all consoles just sits in the store for people who want to go get it. Since you can't, it just puts everything online everything is in the warehouse and you don't really have access to it. Back in the day, it was scalpers were there. At the release of all new consoles, scalpers are there. You can just go to Best Buy at 3 a.m. and wait online for 2 hours and get your console. Fuck scalpers. We don't have that option. I'm here in Texas. I waited online. I showed up at the GameStop was the only place ruthless enough to even have people show up. Everyone else was like, hard no, get out of here. And I was there at 5 a.m. It's about 8 people online. And the manager showed up and he looked at how many PlayStations and Xbox they have. We said, we only have 4 PlayStations, 4 Xboxes.
Yep, that sounded about right. That sounds just about right.
And we were all like, word. And he was like, yeah, man, I'm sorry. We still can't have this many people hanging around the store in the store.
Yep.
So it's like, even because of the pandemic, it plays right into the scalpers' hands. And the line wasn't big. It was only about 15, 16 people. We were all socially distanced, wearing masks. Some people had the lawn furniture out there, were chilling, talking.
Still
not enough. Still not enough. 16 people neatly in line. I was like number 13 or something. Still, they only had 4 PlayStations, 4 Xboxes. That's it.
Because they didn't even expect you to come to the store.
Well, they don't want you to come to the store. It's the opposite. They can't have people coming to the store because remember when the pandemic started?
Oh yeah, they just started telling people to go back.
They telling people to come in. They were like, we are an important business, so we need to stay open. So a lot of states had to be like, GameStop, if you don't fucking close your fucking store, you sell fucking video games, and they had to get hemmed up to close.
And they were doing disrespectful shit too.
Like, oh no, they were rude as fuck. They were being terrible. In the beginning of this pandemic, they did not give a single fuck about anything.
That was my last fuck to give about GameStop, was at that moment. Like, I was like, I hope all them people, and especially the young black folks that work at GameStops, like, right. I hope they bounce back, but it can't be like this. Like, hell no.
That was my GameStop was my last hurrah before I was like, let me just go to the merchant vessel.
Yep.
That was why, because I was like, all right, I'm going to wait on this line. And if this line is too many people, I'm getting off it. If it's too much of a crowd, I'm getting out of the crowd. I'm going to wait and see what happens. And then that was it. And then I went to the merchant vessel. And that's the difficulty. And like I said, CD Projekt found it created a perfect storm of its own bullshit. That storm met the Ponderosa. And it's going to be very bad for them.
I don't think they understand the furor that, like, I wonder if they know that they're being heard on the investor calls, because like they still haven't come out with an apology. Like, they said, please give us a chance, but no, like, dog, the chance was the $60 that they gave you.
Right.
Like, what do you mean give us a chance? Like,
I don't think they understood being the only game in town and what that means, because no one can get a console. So people were relying on Cyberpunk. That was their game. That was their gaming purchase for the fall. That was it. A lot of folks don't have Xbox Series X's, PlayStation 5. A lot of folks don't. A lot of folks are getting told to go fuck themselves. They're getting screwed by scalpers. They can't do this. So it was on Cyberpunk, which is why I thought they weren't going to bring it out this year. And when they said they were bringing it out this year, I was like, that's mighty bold of them, because it's on them. A lot of people's entertainment hopes and dreams, a lot of the mood, a lot of people's literal mental health is on them. And if you ain't got it, it might be in your best interest to push your game back, even if people get mad, because this is worse.
And I mean, also, it's a lot of games out right now. It's not like, while Cyberpunk is the one that everybody is very much looking forward to, everybody has a backlog right now.
They don't care. People wanted to play Cyberpunk. Was the game of the year. It honestly might have been one of the most anticipated games I've ever. Like, the hype for this was, No Man's Sky didn't have this hype. No, nothing. Very few games did, and I don't remember having games because of the audiences that Cyberpunk spoke to. It spoke to everyone, and it spoke to everyone from edgelords to black folks.
Yeah.
We all saw what it was doing, and we were like daring to dream a little bit. Now, CD Projekt Red playing both sides kind of kicked that dream in the stomach a little bit, but we were all looking at it, and they managed to literally have almost 100% of the potential audience staring at their product, and then proceeded to lie to huge swaths of the audience on several levels.
To everyone. They lied to literally everyone.
Right. And they had more eyes on their product than I think they understood. And they fucked it up.
Yeah, that was... Yeah.
They chose to do it. That's on them. They didn't have to do this. They could have pushed it out. They could have even said, this game looks better on next-gen consoles. They could have said it. Like, unless you have a PS4 Pro or an Xbox One, is how you're going to get middling performance.
Dude, 3 months ago, didn't they say it would run fine on the Xbox One?
Yes, they did.
Like, they literally told you, like, hey, we know it's going to run great.
Right.
Meanwhile, in the investor call they just had, he clearly says, the president says, hey, we didn't spend the amount of time that we thought we would for that game. We overlooked it.
Right. And you overlook the consoles with the most coverage. And it's funny because this is usually why lowest common denominator development happens, which is why there's no Xbox One X specific game. There's no PlayStation 4 Pro specific game. Is because no matter what you do, you have to serve your largest audience. And your largest audience does not have PCs and Series X's and PlayStation 5s, not even by any percentage. So they did a thing. They did it. They started building a building wrong, and then they didn't own it. And then they sold it to people, and then the building collapsed, and now they want an apology. But
man, did you know the emperor is not wearing robes?
And I'll always say this: the biggest problems that should be punished, like the hardest punishments, should always be reserved for problems that can be solved and predicted by just niggas on the street. I always say that, like, if you had called me in, I have no shoes on. If you would have called me in barefoot in these pajamas into a call, and I would have said, the first problem is the game doesn't look like it can run on anything. Can it run on anything? And if they were to tell me anything other than yes and show me, then I'd be like, if you can't show it to people, they're going to burn your game development house to the ground. Again, no shoes, pajama pants. I am the most shift. I am a nigga without any shift right now whatsoever. And if I can tell you the major issue for your multi-million-dollar game publishing company that's going to literally, that could destroy that entire monolith, that means you deserve everything that fucking happens to you, because you have a building full of high-paid. No, they are vacuuming resources from people that could possibly do that job more competently across the board. So yes, unfortunately, the publishing house deserves what they get.
We talk about it on the Nerd Off. Like, you always need a can't do that, nigga. Like, you always need at least one. Oh, you can't do that. Nope. And they had none of those. There was no can't do that.
Listen, they if they were tying your bonus to what you can do, fuck it. Then I'm trying to get this money. I mean, I'm certain a number of people said this shit don't run on Xbox and PlayStation.
I'm sure the whistle was sounded. I bet you that's the only way they were able to get that extension. Like, somebody had to say, look, y'all, this shit can't run on. I bet you all that time was just on Xbox. Like,
all the extra time. I would make a strong argument that they have spent more time trying to shoehorn that into base consoles than they are ever going to ever admit for years. We will find out 5 years from now that the delay from January to now was just trying to get it on current gen console.
Because they realized, like, holy shit, we fucked up.
What the fuck?
What do we do?
Right, exactly. Because it's like, they can't do anything. The consoles literally do not have the ability to put forth the image that they are trying to put out there. So.
Yeah, man. Cyberpunk 2077. It came out. Boy.
Bold flavor, guys. Bold flavor.
So, any last thoughts, man, as we wrap this RUNE up, man? Thank you for coming through, man. It's always like what y'all understand is this conversation could go on for another 45 minutes. I'm just letting Aaron off the hook.
Right.
So, yeah, man, tell them where they can find you at, and any last thoughts.
You can find me at ANS Freeman on Twitter. That's the letter ANS Freeman. You can listen to the Unreasonable Fridays Podcast Network, prominently featuring the critically acclaimed podcast ADD Space with myself and Elise Bacon.
Shouts out to Bacon, Captain Nigga.
The Captain. That's unfpodcast.com and ANS Freeman on Twitter. And that's where you can catch me.